Does it feel like this free agency is big name or bust for the Houston Texans offense? Sometimes not getting caught in the hype helps in the long run, unless the hype is real. Plus, I hear the talk. Y'all ready to move on from Stroud already? Trade him?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Got a Red Nation from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around, even those down here in G-Town, Galveston, which is where I'm at. So not the normal background, but I am out here in Galveston at the conference. But still talking Texans on this Tuesday. Got a fun show lined up for you today. Should the Texans trade CJ Stroud? What are we doing here? I talked about it on Monday. So, hey, listen, if you want to move off of Davis Mills, that could be smart if you can replace Mills with a veteran quarterback that it kind of knows his time has passed him. It can offer a little bit more as a quarterback coach on the field. But now, the comment section on YouTube, I'm seeing it on Twitter and social media and all everywhere. You ready to move on from Stroud? Let's pump the brakes a little bit. But also it's important to talk about, hey, for this Houston Texans offense, they need to mirror the defense. What do I mean by that? The defensive side of the ball has all the stars. They got all the names. Offensively, not that much. That's not the case. So that's the conversation for today's episode. Shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas for making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day. And for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And listen here, man. The Locked On Podcast Network has a new initiative. So you guys know I give you 5 daily shows, right? I'm going to ramp it up a little bit. What do I mean by that? Now I will start with daily 10-minute episodes. And with my initiative, what I'm going to personally do, I want to talk about the 2026 NFL Draft. So now starting on Tuesday, you're going to get a running back talk. Wednesday, you're going to get an offensive line talk. You're going to get a center talk. We're going to get a guard talk. We're going to do top 5 players at their position of need for the Houston Texans on the offensive side of the ball. So that's going to be fun. But let's dive into this free agency class. Per over the cap list of spending in 2025, the Houston Texans 31st on the offensive line and 30th on offense altogether, compared to 7th on defense. To simply put it, guys, Houston needs to invest in the offensive side of the ball. Like, that's not a question, right? We've talked about that before. It feels like that's going to be a conversation that we discuss until we get to free agency, which is about a month and some change away ad nauseum. The big question is whether that investment should take into account, someone in the form of 1 or 2 large contracts, or if Houston should if they can achieve that same value by spending that money across the board on different players. The big name for Houston at a position of need, right? I say the Houston Texans should move on from Joe Mixon. They have to replace that player, right? Obviously, the big name that a lot of Texas fans want, Breece Hall. He's a favorite for Houston. Right now, he's projected to sign a 4-year contract worth approximately $41.5 million in the 2026 offseason. That could change, obviously. But Hall has only hit 1,000 yards in his career on the ground once. But that's given the circumstances he's faced in New York. But in terms of what Houston needs and the value of what Hall provides, you're looking at a running back that has rushed for 5.8, 4.5, 4.2, and 4.4 yards per carry and over 1,600 receiving yards in 4 years. And he's done it with a rebuilding and inconsistent offensive line, kind of similar to what the Houston Texans are operating with right now, and an up and down play caller, kind of similar to what the Houston Texans have been operating with over the past 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons, the lines were a little bit below average to bad. They got better year in and year out. That's just a pretty way of saying, in my opinion, you get Breece Hall if the numbers align, right? Huston's offense is extremely talent deficient. Sometimes names are names for a reason, right? But he's in the prime of his career. So he's a name that is not a once was. He's a name that is a right now. not the best yards after contact runner, but most times he's getting where he needs to go without being touched. Good or bad offensive line. Highest first down conversion rates on 3rd and 3 or shorter for running backs. Hall was second, converting at an 80% rate. You like vision, and you like the ability to make something out of nothing. That is what Hall has done a lot this year in his career altogether. And Houston can benefit from a guy who is more than just a guy, especially at a position that faced a lot of uncertainty once Joe Mixon, didn't play for the season, and they needed to lean more on Woody Marks as the year went on because of Nick Chubb's age, and they just kind of phased him out a little bit. Now, that doesn't rule out going, the route of bang for your buck for Houston, especially if Houston feels highly about Woody Marks moving forward, who was a trooper in 2025. I mean, there were multiple games where he leave out the game and come back in, or I think there was like 7 to 8 weeks in a row. So if they feel highly on Woody Marks and, what he can provide for this team as a runner, as a trusted, quote unquote, third down back, the ability to pick up blitz and pass protection, which is something that I thought in many ways he excelled at, and that earned him a spot on the field more times than not, then there are options out there, right? Houston can look to roll with Tyler Algier out of Atlanta, who's a free agent. Devontae Williams, who signed a 1-year deal with Dallas. Rico Dotto, free agent this year. All of those guys are good running backs. They're not going to blow your socks off. They're not going to be a running back that you look up. And maybe Javonte may have the most upside of the three, but neither of those guys are Breece Hall. But they're good running backs who won't cost the right. Williams and Marks could be a good backfield unit, but it wouldn't in both the run and passing game for the Houston Texans. So I think that's what do you go out there? Do you prioritize bang for your buck, right? If you know that you got to create some contract extensions, restructure some contracts. So the money that the Houston Texans need, the very first step to that is getting players to agree to restructuring some of their contracts, right? We also talk about how the NFL is looking out for every franchise. The Houston Texans will benefit from it, but other teams will benefit from it. We'll get to that in the second segment. So once they're able to restructure contracts, right, the next step is for Houston, in my opinion, is there a number we want to get to without hurting us in the long run in terms of how many of these contracts do we really want to restructure? Do we see a future with 4 guys, or maybe it's just 3 guys, right? And if that 4th guy isn't part of that restructuring group, but they trust to be here in the next 3 to 4 years, then maybe that cap hit for the 2026 season, it is what it's going to be, right? Maybe you take those 3 guys, you restructure them, and I'm just throwing out a hypothetical number, and then you look at the market of what you need and how to properly assess it. So in that case, you may look at a Breece Hall could be priced out because not only does Houston need a running back, but Houston also needs other positions as well. And so you got to remember, we're dealing with Nick Caserio and the D'Amico Ryans-led franchise, and they reward their guys. If you fit the swarm mentality, you'll have a spot on this team. And I've said from the jump, I view Woody Marks as a James White type of back who is a solid number 2 and very trustworthy, and I still do. But I mentioned that because they could still view Woody Marks as a guy that can get them to a place where they're comfortable with their running game, and they need to add to Woody Marks and not necessarily add to the run game and the running back unit. They may not feel like they need a lead guy. They may just need a guy who can maybe push Marks, but also, just come in and be in conjunction with what Marks has done this past year if they upgrade the offensive line as well. So we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to talk about a little bit more on tomorrow's episode. But for another position that we need to really discuss, this tight end class, I think, for the free agents group is very good. Houston needs to, look at their options. Do they feel like they need to bargain at a position to fill holes that might not be available in the draft? More Locked On Texans talk when we return. This is one of my fun shows, right? I'm just talking with you guys, and about it is we're getting to a place where for the Texans, offensively, bargain hunting ain't gonna work no more. Not when you're in this window, not when that defense is paid, not when your offense needs players around it to lift the quarterback, which is partially what we're going to talk about to end up today's show.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. As a reminder, later today I will be posting my first of many daily 10-minute episodes where I'll be diving into some of my favorite draft crushes of the 2026 draft. I'm going to talk running back on one episode. I'm going to talk about offensive line. I'm going to talk about tackles, centers, guards, tight ends, receivers, pretty much everything but quarterback. And I'm still alluding to what are we doing with the trade CJ Stroud talk, which once I got over my initial reaction from that playoff game, just being so disappointed, I came to my senses and I realized you're not going to necessarily get better at quarterback unless Houston goes Stroud for Burrow, right? And I don't see that happening. Houston will have to take on Joe Burrow's contract, which I don't know if how this team is currently constructed offensively. Well, actually, yeah, Joe Burrow could win his team a Super Bowl with that defense, bar none. So unless Houston goes Stroud for Burrow, trading him for picks for the future, with a lot of these quarterbacks that are coming out, in my opinion, are extremely uncertain of what their future could look like. That's going to be crazy, but that's how we're going to close out today's episode, so stick around. But as I look at the tight end unit in the free agency class, I see guys like David Njoku, Noah Fant, Kyle Pitts, Isaiah Likely. Njoku looks to be at about in the $8 million to $11 million range. Kyle Pitts looks to be between $11 and $12 million. Fant will likely reach a deal in the neighborhood between $2.75 and $4 million. He had a down year last year. Isaiah Likely, I think he's going to come in under $10 million as well. Things could change with the projected salary cap boost of $20 million from last season, which again, that's going to help out the entire league. Not only Houston would benefit from that, but you got to look at teams that already got some money that's going to benefit from that $20 million boost. But for me, where does Houston view Dalton Schultz moving forward? I think that's going to determine how Houston views this free agency group. Listen, if Houston is looking to maybe extend Schultz, then maybe piling in that money to some of the top options in this year's free agency tight end class might not be in their plans. So we got to consider who's running things at the NRG right now. That's Nick Caserio, right? And so just keep in mind that is Houston's MO. Now, this is where I challenge that. This is just me. Houston's offense needs a Kyle Pitts. Houston's offense needs a David Njoku. The big names in this case gives Houston more value than a Noah Fant, who is still a good player, but he's coming off his worst season of his career. I think when we look at this tight end group coming in the 2026 draft class, I think there could be some steals. Obviously, it depends on where these players go, but none of these players coming out are Kyle Pitts, who's a former number 4 overall pick, or David Njoku, who's a first-round pick. None of these players are that. And here's what I like about this conversation, both for running back and tight end. Cole Popovich, for one, might have shown the ability to do more with less in some ways and gain the trust of the coaching staff and the front office to get young guys ready to play football, right? Wednesday, we'll talk about why bargain shopping for the offensive line would be the worst decision if you ask me. And I'm on record saying for Houston, Cole is nice. He's shown the ability to grow some of these guys in 1 year, but that doesn't mean he got to work with the bottom of the bottom each and every year. Get this guy some vet talent on this offensive line that he can trust to do some of the things that the offense is needing of the offensive line to do, right? Honestly, if we take a look at the tight end group and what the Houston Texans have failed to do, listen, they failed to find a contingency plan for life after Dalton Schultz, right? And this offense asked for a solid tight end too. That's the history of this offense, whether it's either background, whether it is the Sean McVay and Shanahan tree, or if we look at a lot of what we consider Houston deployed last year, the Patriots, that coaching style offense. So, like, Houston needs a number two. Please don't give me Cade Stover leap year talk. I don't want to hear that. Don't give me Brevin Jordan's coming back talk, right? And I have a lot of respect for Brevin Jordan in the back-to-back seasons. To see him go down with that injury, it flat out sucks. There's no way around it. I don't even want to hear about Luke Lachey, right? Former 7th-round pick who in Houston's one of their worst years at tight end, not having a solid number two. You got 3 guys that combine for a little under 110 yards. Luke Lachey never saw the field for Houston. If Houston can upgrade at the right price, each of these guys, including Noah Fant, would be a great option. But if I were Houston, Njoku and Kyle Pitts would be at the top of my list. At the top of my list. 2 freakishly good athletes that would give Houston legit playmakers. But other 2, let me tell y'all, and my everydayers from the Himalayas have heard me talk about this one player for about 2 years now, it feels like. Right? Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts in Houston with CJ Stroud would be great. Number 1, Pitts. What is he, 6'4"? Nico, 6'4". Jaden Higgins, 6'4". And I look at how that would align with the Houston Texans quarterback right now in CJ Stroud, where over the last, let's say, full season and a half, we start to see some of those passes sailed a little bit, or maybe a little bit more difficult, right? A lot of that could be attributed to lack of chemistry with some of the playmakers. I get it. I completely understand it. However, Kyle Pitts is still a player that can go up and get the rock. He can do that. Kyle Pitts is also a player who, in many ways, has played with a lot of up and down quarterback play. So he understands in a lot of ways, okay, if the play isn't the greatest right now in this drive, how can I be the best version of myself for my quarterback and help out my quarterback? That's been Kyle Pitts' career. Last year was his best year since his rookie year. He was able to follow up on that. There's another few things that I like about Kyle Pitts. Over 200 snaps in the slot, inline snaps, over 200. I don't know how Houston feels about their slot position moving forward, seeing as though I think moving off of Christian Kirk would be the smartest thing to do. Jalen Noel came into the league playing a lot of outside receiver at Iowa State. I think he's making some adjustments to play on the inside, not as polished as a slot. He has a lot of straight line speed in terms of that 4.3 40, but not a lot of twitchiness, right? And so I look at how the Houston Texans could use some players to maybe supplement of what they're lacking from the slot position. Kyle Pitts will be somewhat of an extreme help to solve that problem, right? And he's done it at a high level. And here's another thing for both David Njoku and Kyle Pitts. But listen, Kyle Pitts played the last couple of seasons, 2024, 2025, with offensive coordinator and Zach Robinson. Zach Robinson spent some time with the LA Rams as a passing game quarterbacks coach. His time in LA runs similar to the time of an offensive coordinator here in Houston and Nick Caserio. So there will be some familiarity there with Kyle Pitts here in Houston and some of the things that I believe the Texans would ask of their tight end. And here's the best part about it all, right? You sign Kyle Pitts, Dalton Schultz is immediately your tight end 2. At that point, Brevin, Stover, Lachey, or even if they draft a youngin, at that point they could all compete for tight end 3, or maybe you find an H-back role for them or something to do in the backfield, right? I mean, but at that point, you talk about having 2 playmakers at the tight end position, and one of those playmakers, a lot younger, can take the stress off of Dalton Schultz to OG. That will be great for a Houston offense that would have weapons and playmakers around their franchise quarterback, at least as of right now, in CJ Stroud. Which leads me to the next conversation. Should the Houston Texans trade CJ Stroud? Should they? Stick around for more Locked On Texans talk. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to still feel is sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs help you reach the people you're actually looking for that fit what you need: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to the Indeed data. And this is worldwide. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Our listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And also, Texan fans, hey, listen, I know that there's no more NFL, right? And a lot of us are waiting for the NBA to kick back off. But if you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds the extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. I know the Houston Rockets won't be there. But visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Closing out today's episode with a simple question surrounding the franchise quarterback CJ Stroud. Should the Texans trade Stroud? Listen, unless you're getting Joe Burrow back in that trade, it ain't worth it, right? And this conversation was sparked by Todd McShay, who said, "I'm told there are some big-name quarterbacks that are going to be targeted. CJ Stroud is one of them. Does he need a change of scenery? Be prepared for that." Now, here's a theory that I had starting last offseason, right? And this is really, and I don't lie to you guys. So everything that I'm saying now, I may have spoken to some people that I trust behind the scenes, but my theory has always been, dating back to last offseason, that with how the Houston Texans went about the offseason in 2025, right? They hired a new offensive coordinator, first-time offensive coordinator in the third year of CJ Stroud's career, right? And also just getting a feel of maybe CJ Stroud not wanting to be here. I don't want to put this on him. This is just my presumptions. This has not been confirmed. It could be that behind the scenes, Stroud doesn't want to be here in Houston, right? Now, that's kind of funny because I don't think he's in a position to maybe, like, he can't sit out 3 years. If you don't play this year, unless he gets traded, if Houston feels like there's nothing out there that's worth trading for, there's not a quarterback in this draft class worth CJ Stroud. There's not. Fernando Mendoza, none of these guys, a lot of these guys, including the first overall quarterback in my opinion, are second round picks and on down. So, but this could be a situation where maybe behind the scenes, Stroud just doesn't want to be in Houston, right? And if that's the case, then for Houston, the decision would be: do you move on from him or not? No, you don't. You got him for 2 more years now, and then they can franchise tag him. But unless Stroud goes out there and completely sabotages the next 2 seasons, which would be a mistake on his behalf, I think from a financial perspective and also how people would view him as a quarterback, especially after the last 2 times we saw him play football, that wouldn't be smart on his behalf, and it wouldn't be smart on the Houston Texans' behalf to move on from him without getting a quarterback in return that they believe can win them a championship in this window. Let's take a look around the league. If Houston decides to trade C.J. Stroud, maybe you go out there and roll with Kyler Murray. No, I don't think that's smart. I don't think Kyler Murray is a C.J. Stroud as quarterback. And I think Kyler Murray coming back home could maybe sell some tickets, maybe put some butts in the seats, but we'll be looking at a quarterback that has yet to will his team to the playoffs in 3 to 4 years? When the last time we see the Cardinals been good? So that's not smart. Okay, let's look around the league, right? Obviously, you look at what the Seattle Seahawks were able to do with Sam Darnold. Is there a quarterback out there like Sam Darnold? Do the Texans feel like, hey, maybe we can win some games with Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins on a massive contract who's going to be released at some point, and he's old. Kirk would be great for a backup role. Kirk trying to compete and play football right now. So he ain't trying to be no backup. He ain't trying to be no vet right now. He's trying to win games. And there's too much risk there in the Kirk Cousins than there is a reward. So, no, I'm not doing that. Tua is a hell no to me. So you look at some of the older quarterbacks that maybe Houston could bring in. Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, absolutely not. J-Mo, I think it would be a great backup quarterback, a vet, but he's on a 2-year deal with the New York Giants. Russell Wilson, he ain't played winning football in forever, right? He's got his spot taken, his chain snatched in his last couple of seasons, and it does feel like in many ways Russ is just trying to get him enough money to retire, so when he does get another child with his wife and create that family, he got the money to do what he want to do. I don't know how much winning football Russ has left. The best option is to roll it with C.J. Stroud, right? It ain't Davis Mills, which I talked about. It ain't trading C.J. Stroud for a bulk of picks back because let's face it, this draft is lackluster in terms of quarterbacks. Next year's draft, a lot of names. Are those names going to be able to help win 10 games each season? Which a lot of that has to do with the Houston Texans defense. I've acknowledged that, and I still believe that. But C.J. Stroud has had some good moments in the playoffs. He's had some bad moments in the playoffs, but he's played some winning football for Houston in his first 3 years of the career. I just don't think that it'd be smart unless Houston can find a way to get Joe Burrow. That's it. That's it. That's it. Joe Burrow will come back to the South where he played football in college at LSU many years ago. C.J. Stroud can go back up north where he played football at Ohio State, right? So maybe there's a swap there in terms of scenery and going back to a place where maybe you're more familiar. Burrow would absolutely win the Super Bowl with this defense. Yeah. And I don't think Houston would give up a lot of assets because they'd have to take on a bulk of their contract. So it could work out. But unless it's Joe Burrow, it ain't another quarterback out there that Houston should trade C.J. Stroud for. And I think that when we get to these conversations, I see you guys in the comments a lot. Trade C.J. Stroud, keep Davis Mills. And I saw one, my guy here, wait a second. Texans need to start Davis Mills. I don't understand why you and so many look down on Mills as a starter. The Texans roster in 21 and 22 were nowhere near close to what CJ has had since he's arrived, yet you and others talk about Mills' record and his ability. Davis Mills has grown, brother looking sharp, and he spelled brother with an A. quick decisions, reading coverages, protecting the ball, running when necessary. All things CJ Stroud consistently struggled with in 2025. From a football perspective, I know Davis Mills has y'all heart right now. I know this. And the Jags game was amazing. But the very next week, the Houston Texans struggled against the lowly Tennessee Titans. And a lot of that had to do with Davis Mills. If it wasn't for that defense going crazy against Buffalo, you look at what Davis Mills did in that second half and you scratch your head and wonder why Houston couldn't create a lead. Missed targets, overthrows, bad communication with the quarterback, with the wide receivers, especially Jaden Higgins, who very well that was his first game of the year where I thought the numbers don't support it, but he really had a breakout game. Stroud is your quarterback. He ain't getting traded. When things break down, now moving forward, the Houston Texans need to have a plan in place to say, well, we got an offensive line and a running back room that can protect our quarterback, but also open up rushing lanes. And this is why I think when I look at the big name or bust conversation, in this case, it ain't big names that are over 30 years old. These are young, big names that are productive players. That's what the Houston Texans desperately needs on the offensive side of the ball. And then, when we continue this week, I'll talk about how the offensive line is positioned in need and how they shouldn't necessarily bargain hunt with the offensive line. However, there are going to be some tier 2 guys that won't cost as much as a Tyler Linderbaum, but are some damn good football players. So make sure you check out the Locked On Texans podcast throughout the week. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and on Instagram at Some Sports Guy. Like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.